was for the Sierra Bandeau. So you actually don't need any pattern at all to create the Sierra Bandeau. All you have to do is take your own measurements and create a pattern for yourself. And you only have to cut out 6 shapes and a bit of elastic. So it's super easy to make. You don't need a ton of fabric. It's very sexy. And until I actually made this bandeau, I kind of had a love-hate relationship with this style of top. So I loved how bandeaus were super simple and gave kind of like earth goddess vibes. But I hated how they didn't hold me up. So my bust is only like a large B-ish, and I still didn't feel like most bandeau tops like held me in place the way that I wanted. And this one definitely does because of the way that we use the elastic. I actually hiked all over Yosemite in this bandeau and it was amazing. So enjoy. All right, let's start by cutting out all of our pieces. So we're going to cut out 4 rectangles. The length of these rectangles are going to be your bust minus 10 inches. So my bust is 36 inches minus 10 is 26. So each of my 4 rectangles is 26 inches on the long part. Then the height of the rectangles are going to be 12 to 14 inches. If you are shorter, maybe 12. If you are taller, maybe 14. Then you're going to cut out 2 long straps. These are maybe 14 inches if you are shorter, or 16, maybe even 17 if you're taller. And then you're going to cut out some elastic. So the elastic is your bust minus 6 inches divided by 2. The next thing that you're going to do is sew your straps. Most of you know how to do this, but sew a thinner or a thicker strap with the right sides together, and then go ahead, turn it inside out and trim those straps to the length that you want. I used 15 inches for mine and I'm about 5'5". All right, now we're going to take our long rectangles. We're going to pin the right sides together, and we're going to sew across the top and across the bottom to make like a big tube. We'll do this with all 4 of our rectangles in pairs of 2. Sweet, now we have our big tubes. We're going to turn them inside out and then go ahead and press the edges to make them nice and flat. It's always a good idea to press when you're sewing. Cool, now we are going to take all of those elastics. So remember, we cut 14 elastics at that specific size. We're going to lay them out on our garment so we know where they go. And then if you have a right side and a wrong side, a side that you want to be the inside and the outside, you're going to draw on the inside. So I actually go ahead and use either a fabric pen or just a really thin micron pen that will wash away when I wash it a couple of times. And I go ahead and lay my elastic out and draw lines above and below the elastic that are big enough where you could shimmy that elastic through there. So just slightly wider than your elastic. And I would draw my lines after laying my elastic out on the garment in kind of, pretty even fashion. It doesn't have to be perfect here, but you definitely want to spread them out across the garment and then draw your lines above and below the elastic. These are going to be the channels that your elastic goes into. Now we're going to sew along those lines, and this is on both pieces of that rectangular fabric. So you are going to end up with a quilted looking fabric like this for each of your rectangles. Now we have to put the elastic inside of these front and back pieces. So we're going to use our loop turner. We'll actually insert it into one side of each of the channels. Use the hook part and grab your elastic, pull it through. You can also just use a safety pin to do this and kind of wiggle it through with a safety pin attached to one end. I find it easier with a loop turner. And as you can see, I just secured the bottom end of the elastic, pulled it through, and now I'm securing the top end of the elastic. You're going to do that for every single channel. So you have 7 channels on each side and you will end up with this. So as you can see, I went ahead and pinned them, and then I sewed in a straight line down each side so that all of that elastic is secure in place. This of course scrunches the fabric, and you have 2 scrunched pieces with 7 elastic channels in each. Now it's easy, you are almost done. You are just going to sew and overlock each side of your garment, of your little tube. And if you wanted to be done after this step and not add the straps, you actually could do that. I like the straps for added security, but you can see I added my own little tag there just because it's fun, and I went ahead and sewed and overlocked each side on the interior. Now I'm going to measure about 3.5 inches in and make my straps, put them in place where I want them to go, and then I'm going to secure with 2 lines of sewing on the front and back. Make sure you do this with your fabric inside out, so that way when you turn it right side out, you won't see the bottom of those straps. And there is your Sierra top. Because we use so much nice elastic here, you actually will feel support when you're wearing this top, unlike most bandeaus. It is incredible, and I hiked in